Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Lori. This is Ask Dr. Lori. It's nice to see you. We're very popular, as you can see. We're very popular. What happened at 7? Well, you guys overloaded the system. That's what happened at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. And in overloading the system, my producers were trying to, of course, clean everything out and make sure that everybody could get in, but so many people were continuing to click and click and click, and you overload the system, and the system can't take it, and that's what happens. So I am taking questions tonight. You can type them into, of course, the comment section. I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm glad you're here with me. I don't know what I'm going to do going forward with respect to this. We have to get this somehow settled. I've talked about, being fair and giving everybody a chance, but, I guess that falls on deaf ears. But I am happy you're here, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I'll even answer personal questions. Everybody says, will you answer personal questions? Yeah, I'll answer personal questions. I'm taking your questions. So you've got me to, in fact, answer whatever questions you want. I hope you'll sign up for the newsletter as you're getting poised to type, right? What questions that you've got that you're waiting to know about. I hope you'll subscribe to the newsletter. It is free. You go to drloriv.com. You can put in your email address, and then we send out the email with the newsletter frequently. You'll see it. You don't have to do anything else other than give us that. The menu is easy to find. And of course, it's under the free tab for the newsletter, that thumbs up free. And that's where it is. You can just put in your email address and we will send the newsletter out to you. So it's nice that you're all here from all over. I want to know where you're from. And I want to know, of course, I love you too, Southern Alabama. Alabama. I'm happy to do all that I can for all of you. I like to answer your questions. I like to watch you and help you succeed. I'm so glad that you've learned a lot. There's a lot to learn. Don't forget to use the binge link. I'm glad you're subscribing so you can see, and of course, so you can view the videos. Thank you. I'm glad you love it. I'm glad you think there's great info. We work very hard to do that. And I appreciate the support. I also appreciate the support from the bad review, the bad review video. I got a bad review, and a lot of you actually found the bad review, which was impressive, I have to say. I have good research skills. Thank you again for things like supporting the channel by watching. Watching is the most important thing. Use the binge link and watch. Super chats and super stickers are on, and I appreciate that. That helps us to make more videos for all of you. And many of you are saying things like, oh, there's no date, so I can have my own video call, a 30-minute or a 10-minute or whatever length of time you want. I've done very long video calls recently too. So there are dates. So I want you to look in the calendar. I want you to look when you go to the video call page, make sure that you hit, choose your time zone, and then of course go forward to choose your date. What time period does a C clasp indicate? Well, that's a good question. A C clasp on the back of a pin usually indicates the early 20th century, the early 1900s, circa 1920 or so. And that little word circa is sort of about that time period. You can see C clasps even used up to yesterday. They're an inexpensive way for some jewelry designers to actually not have to use sort of a rotating clasp, but C clasps on vintage and antique pieces typically date to the early decades of the 1900s, which is the 20th century. So that's usually what we see. I am taking your questions, so type them on in. I'm happy to answer those. You've got me all to yourselves tonight. A couple of things about that. Don't forget that those types of C clasps are going to help you to identify those pieces. Becky was actually in, Becky and others have taken my classes in the past. Let's see. You mentioned eBay last night. What chances are occurring with it? Okay, I'm doing a video, in fact, talking about the new, discussing the new rules regarding eBay for resellers. There's a lot of new information coming out. There's a lot of rules that are coming out with respect to not only jewelry, but many different things that eBay is doing. So I will be talking about that in an upcoming video. A lot of you want me to share my expertise with respect to, again, the buying and selling world, how to find the best thing on an online auction. Where should we sell this piece versus that piece? And that brings me to the topic of classes. I've been doing classes. I've done them for a long time, since about 1989. I've been teaching classes, but teaching classes, of course, via Zoom, and a lot of people have been enjoying them, and so much so that I'm proud to say that they're sold out. We are offering some more classes, so they are open. You can get a spot if you want a spot. I suggest that you, again, go to the website. They're right under appearances, the events tab. It'll say appearances, dates, and locations, and right there you can look at that. But I want to know what classes you want, because a lot of folks are asking me, in fact, about the classes, in fact, and I said, I want to teach the classes that you want taught. So people are giving me the topics. Now, I want to remind you that the classes that I've been running, which I'll continue to run, everybody who attends the class, they get their object appraised. So, you're all, Ask Dr. Lori Live is great, but if you want to take the class, you want to make sure that you're going to get your object appraised, there are ways to do that. So there's the class and, of course, video calls. But having said that, I did ask, I put a shout out to everybody when they were in the class, and I do give some special extra things at the class too, information that, not everybody gets. So you get it if you take the class. And I did ask the folks in the class, and I said, tell me what you want me to teach. And many people said, I want a class on glass. I want a class on buying and selling. I want a class on the platforms. How do I know the platforms? So, and I want to get to these questions too. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be ignoring them. I purchased an engraved print that has a raised embossed mark or seal, okay, in the mat surrounding the print. I can't even read it. I can't read it with a loop. What would a mark indicate, and is it from a museum? Okay, there's a lot of things that happen on prints. One of the classes, everybody said, will you teach printmaking? And I will. So a couple of things. First of all, there are people who actually draw the actual image, and then there are people who print from the plate of the image that is drawn or etched into the plate. Okay, the plate is the piece of metal that is utilized to create the prints, which are then printed onto paper. Okay, so you've got at least two people dealing with this one particular print. Sometimes you'll see an embossed mark, and sometimes that mark is a distributor's mark. So maybe the gallery that's going to represent that artist has their own mark, okay, and they emboss it in the bottom of the margin. Sometimes the printer will have a subsidiary mark. So not only will they say something like, Joe Smith pinks it, printed it kind of thing, they'll also use another mark or an image. It could be a pictogram mark. It could be, any of those kinds of things. It can be a pictogram mark. It can be an embossed mark. It could be an initial. It could be a circle. It looks like a seal. It could be all different types of things. Could it be from a museum? Museums do that sometimes, but it's rather rare that a museum would put its mark like a seal. It's usually a printer. Sometimes it's a publisher. Okay, so there's a difference between the person who prints it and the person who publishes it. So those are kind of the publishers are kind of the marketers. The printers are actually the people who are doing the printing work. And then there's the artists. They're the people who are responsible for actually drawing the image. I hope that's clear. It is a little bit confusing. It's not really confusing. There's just a lot going on. It's not so much that it's confusing. You guys are smart. You can all figure it out. But basically, there's the artist, there's the printer, there's the publisher, right? And or the distributor. So that's what you're seeing with those pieces. That mark that's embossed that looks like a seal that you hardly can read is either a gallery, somebody who's marketing it, or a publisher, somebody who's marketing it, or of course the printer uses his image in two different places. Super question. And I like these questions because it shows me that you guys are trying to understand these concepts, because once you get these concepts in here, once I teach them to you for in here, they're yours, right? And you're going to be able to use them, and you're going to be able to understand what you're looking at, and you're going to be able to succeed if you're building your own collection or if you're reselling for profit. Are there Murano glass brooches? I own a Murano glass brooch, Kim. Yes, there are. When I was in Murano, I always smile when I think of Italy. I love Italy. When I was in Murano, I will say everything was very expensive from the real furnaces of Murano. And I will say that the glass brooches, I actually have a very, very small, I think it was like $100, and it's a tiny little Millefiore pendant. But it was the real thing. So Yes, there are brooches. Yes, some of them, if you look at some of the online opportunities, those places where they're really selling from Murano, from the actual furnaces, you can find those online. Now, there are a lot of resellers who are actually selling authentic, true pieces as well. That's true. And speaking of authentic, this also happened. I wanted to talk with you about this because this is an important point about authentic pieces. I did a video call with the person who had sent pieces away to have them, in fact, authenticated. And when got the pieces back and they were put into a box of some sort that basically obstructed information that was necessary to be able to look at their condition. There's a couple things about shipping pieces out. And in that same week when I had that video call, person got in touch and said, you know, Dr. Laurie, I want to ship this piece to you, so I want you to appraise it. I do not accept anything shipped to me, and I never want you to, it's my opinion, that you should not ship anything to anyone for evaluation, authentication, identification, or appraisal. No one. It's my opinion. I don't accept it because I don't want you sending your stuff. And here's why you shouldn't want to send your stuff to anybody. Even if you think they're, that you think they're as honest as I am. I don't want you to do this because of this. The piece may not come back with all of its parts. The piece may come back damaged. The piece may come back with some kind of replacement. I've heard stories where a real gemstone was in the piece that was sent away and it came back with a replacement of a glass stone put in its place, or a glass piece trying to replace that stone. So, that has happened. I've also heard, I've been doing this 25 years. I've heard every story that exists in this. Then there's my favorite, which is you won't see it again. You may not see it again if you ship it away. So I want you to be careful of that. This shipping things of, I'm going to ship it to you and you're going to tell me what it is and then you're going to ship it back to me. You know what? I think all the shipping people have enough to do with making sure that we get, all the stuff that we're shipping here and there, tube socks and, whatever else we're getting. I would really be aware. I would be very careful and I would try to refrain and not ship things. My opinion is don't ship it. And if somebody asks you to ship it, question it. Can't you do it some other way? So that's what I would say to that. So that happened also this week here. So yeah, Randy, thank you for being supportive, and I appreciate your support. Super chats and super stickers help to support me and, of course, my team. And my team, do a lot. They continue to, of course, make sure everything happens here. You found a hand-painted German plate. It was marked with PS Germany. What does the PS stand for? Okay, so a couple of different things that you typically will see with these. Sometimes you'll see an RS Prussia mark. Sometimes you'll see a PS mark. Those particular marks indicate, again, either the manufacturer, or they indicate location, or they indicate royalty, basically that they're affiliated with the monarchs, okay? So there's very famous RS Prussia marks of hand-painted plates, and then also there are, a little bit later, these Germany marks. I prefer to see, of course, an RS Prussia mark. Why? Because that tells me that the piece is a little bit older. It also tells me that the piece is made of nice high quality. The hand painting is where the value is going to be on that. I know you all love your marks, and marks are very important, but it's really the quality of the hand painting that's going to make the difference between a $50 plate like that in porcelain and a $150 plate like that in porcelain. Some of them have gone way, way high. When the market's really hot, they can go several hundreds of dollars. But for the most part, when you're looking at these kinds of things, I would say just be aware of that. Sure, the marks are great, they're important, but what's most important when you're looking at a hand painted piece is how good is the hand painting? And is the hand painting signed on the front of the plate? Is it just the mark and there's no, of course, signature on the front of the plate on the hand painting? So good question. Hey, we got great questions tonight. I like it. I like it a lot. So I'm taking your questions, and of course, I want to make sure that we see all of those questions. I wanted to thank you folks for supporting that bad review video. I know I was talking about it a little bit earlier. I want to make this point, though. A lot of you are like, oh, Dr. Laurie, don't let it get you down and don't feel bad. And I do feel bad, but what I really was annoyed at was the misinformation, because that hurts you. I don't want anything to hurt you. I want you all to succeed. I want you all to have it easy. I want you all to find the things you love. I want you all to enjoy the treasure hunt. I want you all to enjoy my videos. That's what I want to see. So, but it was the misinformation when they get everything wrong. Okay, you don't like me? Okay, fine. But and most people do, but maybe they don't. I don't know what they like me or not. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me here is the misinformation. They're saying stuff that's not right. And then you have these sites that just allow these things to be on. So a lot of people need to sort of get a reminder of what's really happening here. I think I should have had an opportunity on that site to respond to, well, if that's what you're saying about me, then I'd like to get the information correct. Wouldn't it be fair that I would have a place to do that? So I appreciated it if I could have a place to actually say, here's the right information in my view. So Rebecca wants to know, what do I need to know about artist proofs? I have a few artist proofs, and I appreciate you joining the conversation. You're not late. No one's late. It's good. It's good to see you. A couple of things about artist proofs. First of all, you'll see artist proofs as AP in the United States and as EA in much of Europe. I talk about these and a lot of other information at drloriv.com if you go to the research tab. Or if you don't want to go to the research tab and look through art and antiques, that's fine. But you can go to the research tab, or if you don't want to do that, you can go to search and just put in prints. And all of the stuff about prints that I'm teaching you is right there on the website. And the website is like a treasure trove. So I hope you'll use it. You see the tabs at the top about Dr. Lori, appearances, find values, videos, research. You click on those and, they're going to open up to other information. You know how that goes. The research tab will say art and antiques. You can go in and then you can select prints. But here's what I want to tell you about artist proofs. Artist proofs were a way for marketers, gallery owners, and artists to promote their work. So basically they would say the artist proof is better than all the other prints because the prints in a limited edition print run, because the artist proofed it. Walked into the actual printmaker's studio and said, oh, you have my beautiful, colorful print that I made and you're printing it. I want to proof it to make sure that it looks like the beautiful, colorful print that I intended it to look like. I want to make sure that your print job is good, basically is what they're doing. Here's what happens with artist proofs. They may proof it anytime during the print run. It may not be at the beginning where, the artist says, I'm giving you the go ahead, print them all. Print all 250 of them. Print all 100 of them. Print all, 500 of them. Well, the situation is such that you would think that the artist shows up at the beginning, so all of them, they can get them all right. Well, he doesn't always do that. He or she could show up at any point. They could show up in a print run of 500 once they've printed 498 of them, and only the last two are really what he looked at. They do mark AP, but a lot of people prefer an artist proof, and a lot of galleries will charge more for an artist proof. So a lot of people still believe that artist proofs are better than every other print in that print run. Are they better? Well, they're different. So an artist proof is what you want to look for. And on my website, I explain to you exactly how that works and how all of those little initials work. There's a lot of little identifiers on prints. And on those pages, I tell you what HC means, what EA means, what AP means, what a Roman numeral means versus an Arabic numeral. Why do they use that? Artists like Salvador Dali, a great printmaker, uses a lot of these different symbols. So I explain those too. Good question. Good question. The more you know, the more dangerous you are and the better you're going to do. You have a large collection, 200 plus of oil lamps. Okay. Are there something to consign or auction or eBay? Do I have a suggestion? Trust your knowledge, and I'm watching, learning, enjoying. Linda, I'm glad, and I appreciate the support that you trust my knowledge. I'm here to help you. Teachers who care about you help you. That's what they do. Other people who are like, oh, well, I know this and I know that, they're not here to help you. That's what I do. So anyway, having said that, I'm glad I've earned your trust. I've worked hard to earn your trust. So it's a two-way street, though. The large collection of oil lamps. Oil lamps, depending on if they are clear glass with the font, of course, and then the wick, and, you move the little knob, and then the wick goes up, or the wick comes down. Hurricanes on top of them, right? Those are those long, skinny, right, pieces. And then sometimes you'll have a shade, a globe, or not. Oil lamps can be very valuable. Their market has changed a lot over the last 10 years. About 10 years ago, they were much more valuable than they were in other times. If you want to ship them, right, and you want to sell them yourself, and you want to bring more of the profits home, then, you know, I would say an online auction platform would be fine. If you want to say, you know what, I'd like somebody else to do that work. I don't want to worry about the fragility of shipping glass. You know, you could do it. It's not like you wouldn't be able to do it. If you want to do that, then maybe you want to consign it to an auction house, an estate auction kind of thing. And then the other place that you suggested, I don't remember the first one that you suggested, should you sell them? Should you continue to collect them? 200 of them, I would say that you may want to sell them off in groups of maybe 25 or 50, as opposed to even bombarding an auction house with 200 of them. Because once that happens, the folks who normally will frequent that auction house are going to start to get a little bit like overwhelmed with oil lamps. And then they start to say, oh, well, I don't really want to pay that much. What they'll pay for the first one when it's first introduced is usually a lot higher than what they want to pay for the last one, because they've seen so many. Kind of looks like a fire sale. I don't know if you ever remember, my mother used to say things like that. It seems like a fire sale. You know, when, you know, we'd all have the same, you know, we'd buy 3 sweaters that were just in 3 different colors, but they were all the same type or the same style. You know, it looks like a fire sale. Everybody's got the same thing. So I would say that if you are looking at that kind of thing, think about smaller quantities in your sales. I would not sell the best one of your collection first. I would establish my market first too. These are the types of things that I'm going to teach in the class. This and more. So anyway, good question. Good question. I hope that answers it. Thanks so much. I have heard of an artist. I've heard of many artists named Jay Gonzalez. I mean, there's a Jose Gonzalez who's relatively well known. I want to thank you for helping pets. A lot of you folks are helping pets. I do love dogs. I do love cats. I do love pets. I have a couple bunny rabbits that I like too. They're not mine, but I like them. they're actually, there's some around the neighborhood. But what I want you to think about in terms of this is when you're looking at a particular artist, there may be a lot of artists with similar names. So you have to really look at the style of the artwork and make sure you're matching it up with the right artist. Because a lot of times you're going to see names that are common or names that are similar, and you're going to see different artists in this way. I can even think of some of the great artists of the history of art who also had other artists who just happen to have the same name. So you want to make sure that you're comparing those works and making sure you're getting the right Jose Gonzalez when you're looking at it. So when you ask me, have I heard of him? You know, in graduate school, we had a particular, and also in museums we used this, we had a particular art reference book, a couple of different art reference books for different artists throughout the history of art. And we literally had to recognize and be able to memorize. You know, a lot of you go, I can't believe your memory. Well, this is laying the foundation. It's less about memory and more about basically learning what you need to remember, what information needs to be always at the front of your mind. So we used to have these books that we would have to actually identify and remember all these names of all these artists in a particular time period or a particular place. So, you know, maybe the assignment would be, okay, I want you to recognize and remember 100 artists that are working in Germany in, you know, at the Munich Art School from 1875 to 1905. And we'd have to do that. So it's a lot of that kind of rote memorization, but that rote memorization being applied to a particular work of art. I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm saying make sure when you're looking at a work of art, don't assume that if that artist's name doesn't look like that work. So you've got an artist name and then you found another work of art with that artist's signature on it. And you say, oh, that's him, that's him, that's him. But your work of art doesn't look like the work of art with the same artist signature. You probably don't have the right artist. It does have to match. So I hope that helps. I piloted a vintage and antiques club at the high school where I teach. Oh, that's fun. We watched one of your videos. It was well received. Well, I would think that the kids would probably like me, you know, and the way that we present the information. I think it's cool, Rob, that you piloted that. I think it's cool that there are a lot of kids who really like, you know, vintage stuff. I also think that it's interesting so they can make an understanding of history. I think it would be a very, very easy way to understand history. If kids and all of you understand that, you know, art and antiques are the things that people made because they needed them or they wanted them through different points in history, different time periods in history, you can learn a lot about history easily. I've taught it that way a long time. So if you see history the way I do as a study of people, this is the stuff that people made. So you can understand what they needed. You know, actually, I was just appraising a an early 20th century heater. It was an early 20th century gas heater. And it was pretty good looking, and it's funny. It doesn't look like what we have today in our furnaces. They're just kind of like metal boxes, but that was kind of a beautiful piece. And it had a lot of the design of the time period, which was very typical because they didn't hide these pieces. They put them right out front and center. So interesting. I'm proud of that. I think that's great. Thanks for including me in your pilot program of your antiques group at the high school. That's cool. Where's the best place to resell? Lisa, what do you have to resell? That's what you all should be asking yourself. You should all be asking yourself, what do I have to resell? And then where's the best place to resell? There's not one best place. There's never one best anything, right? Oh, except appraiser. There is a one best appraiser, right? That's me. But I will say that when you're thinking about where's the best place to resell, you really have to think about what am I trying to sell? And what market do I try to go to? So, you might be trying to sell, a ring on my hand. You want to sell it to a 35-year-old, but, the ring on my hand really would apply better to, a 45-year-old. So now let's find the 45-year-olds and where they're shopping for jewelry rather than the 35-year-olds and where they're shopping for jewelry. Okay. And then I want you to think about those types of things. So when you ask that question, that's really the second question you should ask. The first question you should ask is, okay, what do I want to sell? And then where's the best place? Who do I want to sell it to would be a good question to ask yourself, right? And then where's the best place? So where's the best place to sell has to be further down the I want to sell it road. Clear? Do you get that? So that's basically what I think is the best thing to do. I like an example because examples allow you guys to let the light bulb go off. I've taught for a long time at the university level, long time. I want you to get it, and I know that I can teach it to you. I believe that people that run our thrift store are appraising items according to what you say. Here in Kentucky, milk class has always been very cheap. Lately, it's all marked up. Well, I don't know if this is my doing. I have an impact, sure. I think people realize that I know the market. I also think that there is, of course, and this has a lot to do with me, but it has a lot to do with a lot of things. You probably are aware that by 2026, it's projected that, of course, the market for, of course, thrifted items is going to, upwards of between $77 billion and $82 billion in the United States. It's a growth market, and they think it's a growth market more than 125% growth. So you know what? These thrift stores are waking up and going, well, you know what? The other thing about this thing, you noticed that you talked about milk glass. They're listening to me, sure, but you know what else? It's wedding season. Milk glass is very popular for weddings and for rehearsal dinners, and a lot of people will get a lot of those vases together and do that. And if you watch my videos in my binge link, will you put up the binge link for me? Because the binge link is really what you need. Oh, I've watched all your videos and much to watch your videos, for a night. 3 or 4 hours of watching your videos. I have thousands videos, nearly 1,000 videos. So the binge link will help you to organize that so you're not, trying to search them. You think you're done with my videos when in fact you haven't even scratched the surface. There's a lot of information. And the reason why I bring up the binge link, and thank you for that, the reason why I bring up the binge link is because I talked about this, with respect to milk glass in a different video. So you know why this is important. Now, you're probably saying, well, in Kentucky, it used to be cheap and now it's not cheap. Well, a lot of things are changing. Look at gas. How many months ago, gas was cheaper. It's not as cheap. Everything's getting higher. So you want to think about that. But yeah, good question. Good question. Are people listening? I think a lot of people are listening. And I think people are listening because they know I'm honest and I don't have a dog in the hunt. They know I have 25 or more years of experience, about 26 years of experience doing this. And they know I'm trying to help you. So there you go. I have a Windsor chair with horizontal grain on the seat. Horizontal grain on the seat. Okay. I read somewhere that horizontal grain is valuable. What else can I look for? Okay. Well, that's a good question, Lizette. Here's a couple of things. I want to know what kind of wood your particular chair is. So it's a Windsor chair. Is it pine? Is it walnut? Is it mahogany? What kind of Windsor chair is it? Is it spindleback? Is it a balloon spindle? Does it have a curved crest rail? Does it have arms? Does it have a little desk area, like a little place where you can kind of put your candle and write something? You're Thomas Jefferson, you're sitting in your Windsor chair, you're writing a letter to John Adams, that kind of thing. They wrote a lot of letters back and forth. So anyway, it reminds me of when I appraised Thomas Jefferson's writing desk, because he wrote a lot of letters and it was cool to appraise his writing desk. So having said that, the grain being horizontal is not as important. Now you're thinking, oh, it's important because how the boards are actually laid out. I want to know what kind of wood it is. Was it painted? Typically, Windsor chairs were painted black, red, or green in the late 1700s. So little more information and then I can help. But a Windsor chair in general will have value depending on how old it is. Is it a reproduction? Are the legs turned? So do they have curves, right? Curves means that they've been turned on a lathe, that kind of thing. So this is where a lot of people go, how does she know all this? This is all I do. This is what I do, and I do it all for you. No point asking my question. Guess the mods won't puck my question. You think the moderators are not picking your question. Here you are. We picked your comment, so where's your question? Well, happy to do it. There's always a point in asking a question. You can always ask a question here. You know, I'm sitting here. So what does the MP mark stand for at the bottom of a pottery vase? It will depend. It will depend. MP can be many different things. In a studio art setting, if it's a studio art pottery vase, that could be the initials of the potter. That could also be the maker, the overriding person who might have other ceramists working under him or her. So I would have to see the actual piece. Is it a manufactured piece? And, is it done in a ceramic factory? Is it a Staffordshire piece? Is it a Royal Dalton piece? Is it a piece made in New Jersey and Trenton, like a Stangl piece? What does the MP stand for? We have to see what you're talking about so I understand exactly what you're talking about. A little bit more specific, if you would. Or send a picture. You can all send a picture to my website at drloriv.com. You know that you can send pictures for an online appraisal review, and I will review it. If it's not worth the cost of the appraisal, I will let you know that, of course, free of charge. drloriv.com is where it's at. So the questions are coming. You can put it in the comments. I hope you will also tell me, where are you? Where are you watching from? And I appreciate you watching. We're trying to give you all the tools so you can have a great time treasure hunting. And so you can also have an easy time to identify pieces. Can you tell the age of a mirror by the backing used? Wood versus metal versus felt. Well, that could give you some clues about mirrors. Sure. A couple of things, typically wood is a backboard that's used in the early 20th century if you're talking about paintings and mirrors and such. Metal, a metal backboard is rather unusual. You don't see a lot of metal backboards. The frame could give you a lot of tips on time period as well. If you look at the type of mirror glass that's being used and its condition, that will help you identify time period. I've appraised mirrors in my classes before. And then felt is something that we typically see if somebody wants to make sure that something isn't going to get damaged. I see more felt usually on pottery and ceramic pieces that are going to sit on a table and not so they would prevent scratching a table rather than on the backs of mirrors. So yeah, you can use that. But if you are investigating mirrors, I want you to look at the frames. I want you to look at the type of mirror glass that's being used. Thickness will also tell you about time period. Thicker mirror glass is oftentimes desirable, and whether or not it has any flaking, if you can see any flaking around the place where it's framed. So good question. So what are the clues to dating lobster claw clasps on jewelry? Okay, a lobster claw clasp on jewelry depends on which type of jewelry. Thanks for the question, Cindy. Cindy's, of course, oftentimes has some great questions and has supported the channel too. So a couple things about lobster claw clasps. It depends on what piece of jewelry. A lobster claw clasp is oftentimes used in costume jewelry. It'll hold on to those little, they'll have a small, it makes a costume jewelry of beads, and then a necklace of beads, and then it'll have smaller beads, and it'll have a little lobster claw clasp, and it'll kind of hook on. That's sometimes called a fishhook clasp. A lobster claw clasp, usually you open it up, and then you are able to sort of put a little hook inside, and then you close it, and it really is a good, strong clasp. They become very, always used by the latter part of the 20th century, and oftentimes they're used for more delicate or more expensive jewelry. So if you have a nice, big, thick 18 karat gold, wheat wheat link chain or box link chain, you're usually going to have a lobster claw clasp. Lobster claw clasps almost always are used for charm bracelets because charms are expensive and the bracelets are expensive. And typically they will have a lobster claw clasp. What to look for? If you look at a lobster claw clasp and you open up the clasp to allow that piece to go in, that little hook to go in, you're going to see usually a mark on it, a maker's mark or a fineness mark. And if you haven't seen the marks and you don't know about marks, they're on my website too. I gave it's a comprehensive information about marks on jewelry on my website. Gold marks, fineness marks, that's how fine is it, 18 karat gold, 14 karat gold, and of course also maker's marks, identifier marks. So that's on the website too. If you open the lobster claw clasp, and you should be able to see a little 14K, little itsy bitsy tiny. How could you see it? You got to get the loop, get the loop, use the loop, and, put your eye up to it and do it. That loop is going to be a money magnet for you. You're going to find a lot of information that you're going to need when you're trying to find good pieces using that loop. I'm sorry, I might have missed a question. I apologize. So I've been told for a long time that 19th and early 20th century China is not worth anything, that no one wants it because it's formal. Is that true? And will it come back in popularity? Well, you already believe it because you said, will it come back in popularity? So you've already fallen for this. It's an late 19th and early 20th century pieces are not worth anything. Well, let me tell you, China is back. It's so popular. Actually, there was a Paragon piece that I saw that I appraised very, very high. There have been many pieces that are coming out of England, China, very high. Limoges, Haviland for Limoges, always high. I mean, I can go through a laundry list of bing, 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 which I do on the website and on the videos where I talk about plates, but lots of them. So when you believe this stuff, this is the misinformation stuff that I can't stand because they're saying, oh, it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything. And then over here, those same people who are saying it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything are buying it all up for cheap so they can resell it on the market that they know is high. So no, China is very popular. There was this whole about 5 years ago, and it's continued. A lot of folks who have said, all the younger generation doesn't like antiques and they don't want China because they don't entertain and they don't want to hand wash things. I can tell you, I mean, it's funny because I'm thinking in my mind's eye of a video call that I had with a lovely couple who said, we bought this beautiful China. It's gorgeous. It was gorgeous Sèvres French China, beautiful. And it was a reproduction of an earlier Sèvres set. And they bought the whole thing. They were so excited. They said, we got it online. We saw it at an online auction and I had to have it. And I'm putting it out for display. I don't intend to use it. So they intend to use it as a display piece, as beautiful things around them in their home. So, you got to watch out for the misinformation because you don't know what the agenda is. There's no misinformation here. I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to share my expertise. And I'm basically going to help you to answer those questions that you don't know. I hope you enjoyed this session. I'm Dr. Lori. It's nice to be with all of you. And I hope to see you again soon. I'll see you next time.